Estamos acá con el doctor Gabriel Cousens. La verdad es un honor estar acá con vos. ¿Qué podemos decir de este gran hombre que es médico homeópata, Ayurveda, rabino? La verdad son muchas preguntas las que queremos hacer y está buenísimo que el doctor nos dé este lugar para poder empezar este cuestionario básico, pero que el doctor nos pueda explicar para las personas que no sabemos más o menos un poco de la trayectoria y lo que es el vegetarianismo, la diabetes, distintas enfermedades que el doctor cura con la alimentación llamada la alimentación viva. Le podemos preguntar, ¿hace cuánto que sos vegetariano vegano?
How many years? 40.
40 años. 40 años.
Yeah, 40 años.
40 años que sos vegetariano vegano.
Sí.
Consumiendo todo alimentación viva. Only raw food.
30 años.
30 años. Me gustaría que expliques, pensá que estamos en un país, Argentina, que es muy carnívoro, que consume muchos lácteos. ¿Qué es la alimentación viva?
Please explain what is live food.
The Alimentación Viva es la alimentación sin cooking, sin baking, sin boiling, sin any process of heating or microwaving to the food, so it is not damaged in any way. It is not processed in any way.
Bien. ¿Qué beneficios brinda esta alimentación?
The benefits of live food are many. First, it builds the immune system. It creates an anti-aging effect. 60 years, años, y one gets stronger with age, one gets more flexible with age. One's mind is clearer. In one research we showed that people who did live foods, and that's just 80% live foods, not 100%, 87% of the people felt their mind was clearer and more creative. And they felt more in touch with God and with Spirit. People cut down on the need for all medications by 4-fold. Only taking 1/4 of the medication they were before. Their bowels work better. 90% of the people, their bowel function was better. They felt more energy. So their sleep came to normal. They had optimal sexual energy. So every aspect of their life was improved after the study was for 2 years. After 2 years, on 80% live food. Every aspect of the life was improved. The research also suggests that it creates an anti-cancer effect and an anti-diabetes effect, and also protects against heart disease. So there are many, many, many benefits. Also, although it's not for weight loss, generally people who go on a live food diet will lose weight. If people are very overweight, they can lose as much as 100 pounds in a year until they come to normal. Once they reach their normal weight, the weight stays the same. My weight has been the same for 55 years. So that gives you an idea of the weight is stable.
Okay. ¿Por qué nos enfermamos? ¿Por qué el cuerpo se enferma?
Why do we get sick? Why does the body
Oh,
get
infirmo. See,
Ego, ¿no?
we get sick, infirmo, when we aren't following the natural way, when we call it the nature's seven healers. When we are not eating right, when we're eating junk, processed food, eating too much food or too little food, when we don't get enough sleep, when we don't get enough exercise, when we don't get enough sunlight, when we don't get enough emotional balance and spiritual balance in our life, and also enough love, those are the 7 big factors for why people get sick. And in essence, in a single sentence, we get sick when we become out of harmony with life on every level.
Todo el mundo conoce todos tus conocimientos acerca de la diabetes. ¿Qué nos puedes transmitir de esta problemática?
Everybody knows about your knowledge about diabetes. What can you say about this?
With our approach for curing diabetes, which is a 100% live food diet and a moderately low glycemic or carbohydrate and higher fat and a little bit higher protein, we are now healing in 21 days, 3 semanas, 61% of the non-insulin dependent type 2 diabetics and 24% of the insulin dependent type 2 diabetics. And surprisingly enough, even though all the doctors and all the medical schools in the world will tell you can't heal diabetes, that's what's happening in 3 weeks. More people heal after 3 weeks. So we put it 3 weeks. At 6 weeks, more people heal. At 3 months, more people heal. Surprisingly enough, 21% of type 1 diabetics also are healing in 3 weeks. That's very unique. That's not been done before. Some doctors predicted in 1925 that we would figure out how to do it, but we're the first that are actually doing it. So that's very important in the big picture. And then 31% of the type 1 diabetics come off all their insulin, as well as the 21% off all insulin with a blood sugar less than 100, which is considered non-diabetic. So we get very good results in very simple ways using no medications. And we do that by returning people to the natural way of eating and living. So the diet is most important, but if people don't get enough sleep, their blood sugar will go up. If people are stressed, if people are eating commercial food, because the research is very clear that pesticides and herbicides and heavy metals and all increase the rates of diabetes, as does radiation, and as does sometimes electromagnetic fields. So people have to bring their life into balance. In a bigger way, there's a pandemic of diabetes in the world. And the deeper cause is we are no longer living a world healthy lifestyle. Sugar is number one problem, but all the other problems add to it. So when the world, so diabetes then becomes a symptom of a world out of balance. It's a red flag saying there's a problem. All diseases are a flag saying there's a problem. Pay attention. And so we have chosen to pay attention, so our people who choose to heal with this way, they shift their whole life, although diet is most important. This is another important point. You have to love yourself enough to want to heal yourself. Okay?
Okay.
And that means not everybody's ready to do this natural way. So they can use they don't heal, but they can use insulin and things to kind of slow the march to death. And people with type 2 diabetes lose 10, 19 years off their life. So if you love yourself enough to want to heal yourself, then you can come back to this way and reverse many of the problems. We've even had people who are blind, one of the symptoms of degeneration of diabetes, begin to see again.
Ok. ¿Podrías decirnos cómo ustedes en tu centro en Arizona tratan esta enfermedad?
Is it a center to work only on sickness?
No. Can you please tell us how in your center in Arizona treat this sickness?
Well, exactly. What we do for diabetes, we want to do for everybody. It's all about coming back to the natural way. But we also, like with diabetes, have people connect also to their own spirit. And that's a very important thing. It's a very important part of the healing process. In a holistic process, you want a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual balance. We focus on all of those.
Hablamos mucho de siempre que acá se dice somos lo que comemos. Entonces queremos saber cómo influyen los alimentos en el organismo, cuáles son los que ayudan a sanar y cuáles son los que enferman.
Here we talk a lot about we are what we eat. We would like to know which are those foods that heal us and which are those foods that makes us sick and ill.
The food that heals us, according to many of the experts, not just me, you're going to be, frutas and the vegetables are the most, and the nuts and the seeds. What we're going to say is plant-based foods. Those are the most powerful healing foods. And we kind of focus on that, and we focus positively rather than a negative focus. And the foods that aren't good for us, there's the junk food, the fast food, the white flour, the white sugar. Those are the foods that are really not good for us. Also, the research has come out at the leading universities. For example, Harvard Medical School of Public Health, in a 28-year study, showed that people who eat meat, depending on the quality of meat, lose 13 to 20% of their longevity, of years of their life. So that's a problem. Research also shows that people who eat meat have 32% more heart disease and 35 to 50% more diabetes. So when we look at the whole picture, eating lower on the food chain is very, very important as a healthy base. Eating organic food is very, very important. And also getting adequate hydration. That's very important. Adequate water. And then the other things follow along with that. That we want foods that are high in minerals, which are going to be your vegetables. Okay? We want foods that are low in sugar, because sugar is not really too healthy for us. It's not healthy for us. We need to individualize our diet, because we're all unique. And it's also good that we make, our food is made with love. Yeah, there's the radio one?
No.
Hablando de que hablabas de alimentos orgánicos, de la importancia de alimentos orgánicos, ¿por qué es tan importante consumir este tipo de alimentación, de alimentos orgánicos, libres de pesticidas, de herbicidas, de transgénicos? ¿Qué pasa con este tipo de alimentación?
Which is how important is organic, right?
Yes, free from
Okay,
GMO,
so we don't have all the data that needs to be said about GMO. The preliminary research is saying that the GMO foods generally begin to create gene changes and generally after a period of time begin to affect all organ systems, particularly the brain, the heart, the adrenals, thyroid, and create a degeneration. Also, they decrease fertility. These are things that people are observing. It will take more years to prove it, but there is what we call a trend. Okay? So that's very important. Pesticides and herbicides are neurotoxins and they're carcinogens. The average child, baby, Nino, in the United States is born with 200 pesticides and herbicides. 180 are carcinogens. 217 are neurotoxins. So we see a great increase in hyperactivity, great increase in dyslexia, autism. There are many problems that children are having today that they didn't used to have. Now in the older people, as the pesticides accumulate, we know that people who have more exposure to pesticides will have a 7-time greater amount of Parkinson's disease than people who eat organic. So those are, the fact is they are poisons. That's how they work. They kill the bugs, the insects. So these poisons poison us too. We're just bigger and it takes longer. So the evidence is accumulating again that these poisons are affecting us. And they are affecting our children because it affects their ability to read, their fine motor coordination, and other more subtle things that doesn't really show up, like disease. But at the same time, the rates of cancer for children are skyrocketing. In the United States, cancer is the #1 cause of death besides suicide. So that's unusual. Well, how does that happen? Well, why do kids get cancer? They have so much toxins that their bodies can't process it and they break down into cancer. That's not natural. So those are some of the reasons. In a simple way, there was a high school in Wisconsin who went all organic. Their athletic performances, they became the top in the state. Their scholastic performance became the top in the state. Because the pesticides and herbicides are just what they are. They're neurotoxins. They affect your muscle strength, ability, and coordination, and they affect the function of your mind. But it's subtle until you do an experiment, and then it becomes obvious. So it's very important. Now, today, people are exposed. Everybody is exposed to pesticides and herbicides. The research shows that parents who give their kids organic food, those kids will have 1/4 to 1/6 the amount of pesticides and herbicides in their blood. So they're going to get an advantage. They'll be smarter in school. They'll be stronger in school. They'll be faster in school. They'll be more coordinated. So they get an advantage over the kids who are laden with these neurotoxins so they can't think or move as fast.
Dale.
Pues voy a avisar de nuevo.
Gabriel, te quería preguntar, ¿qué genera el consumo de lácteos, de carne? Porque la gente piensa que eso trae proteínas y que nos ayuda, que nos pone fuerte. Quería saber tu opinión al respecto, ¿qué genera este consumo de lácteos, bebidas azucaradas como las gaseosas, carnes?
So are you saying,
He wants
can you
to-
get enough protein?
No, no.
Oh,
One part is that,
okay.
and but one part, the main part that he's asking you is what consuming meat and dairy generates, because most of the people think that consuming meat and dairy will make you strong. But what is really causing us all the meat consumption or all the animal consumption and dairy?
What is it causing?
Yes.
So, two things. As an example, when I was in college, I was captain of an undefeated American football team and a National Football Hall of Fame. And I could do 70 push-ups. 40 years later, at the age of 60, after 20 years on a 100% live food diet or 99% live food diet, I did 601 push-ups. But I was 40 years older, and I became that much stronger. The research in general with animals and also with vegetarian humans shows that people who have a vegetarian diet usually double their strength and endurance. With animals in Russia, Dr. Breckman showed that feeding the mice cooked and regular food and the raw food, the animals in the raw food had 3 times the endurance. Research back to 1917 at Yale University, and actually 10 different researches over time in France and different, showed that compared to meat eaters, the vegetarians had about double the amount of endurance and endurance strength. So that's what the research shows. Why is that? Well, I think what happens is that with the meat and the dairy, but mostly the meat, you build up uric acid in the tissues, and it actually impairs the muscle function. Now, at the same time, if you're working out hard, you do need more protein, but you don't need to get it from meat. We have excellent sources of vegetarian protein. Besides nuts and seeds, we have spirulina and chlorella, which are the highest quality protein. They're 65% protein and up to 95% assimilated. Meat, fish, and chicken are only 16, 17, 18% assimilated. The best animal protein assimilation is eggs at 44%. This is 95%. So you can get high quality protein. Now, but the other side of the story, which people don't know about as much, is the recent research that shows that there's a certain longevity genetic pathway called the mTOR system, and if you get too much protein, it blocks the pathway. And this pathway gives you longevity and protects you against cancer. So excess protein, which is what most people get, actually decreases your longevity, okay, and increases your potential to get cancer. What excess protein? The optimal protein is between 35 grams and 75 grams a day. The average meat eater is probably getting closer to 125 grams a day, which is way too high. So the big problem is excess protein. So we have to turn it around and say, well, everybody's maybe getting too much protein. Let's eat protein that gives us the optimal longevity and the optimal anti-cancer.
Decime cómo ves la problemática de la alimentación en el mundo.
How do you see the problem of the nutrition in the world?
Before 1940, there was no diabetes, rare. Then it became an epidemic. What happened? What happened primarily was the introduction of white flour and white sugar and junk food into the world dietary pattern. Wherever white flour, white sugar, and junk food have gone, within 20 years you have an outbreak of diabetes. Now what is diabetes? Diabetes is accelerated aging. Okay? Diabetes is a symptom of a general degeneration in the system. So that's one problem. Okay, the second problem is the amount of processed food. It used to be we had good, clean, organic food, as that's what everybody ate. It was like, there was nothing special about organic food, that's just what everybody ate. By introducing commercial food, and I'm going to also say GMO food, which may turn out to be the worst thing the planet has ever had in its dietary flow. You know, we can't prove it yet, but it's, again, what we call a trend. 30 years ago, when they first began to make the connection of smoking and cancer, it took them 30 years to prove it. And we can't afford to wait 30 years to prove that GMO is a disaster for the world. So it completely changes the structure of the food. And they keep adding a variety of different tricks that actually turn off the healthy genes, you know, or it maybe work for the plant, but not when the people, it gets into the human system and it starts to alter the human DNA. This is not good. So probably the biggest disaster for food in general is GMO. And we'll see it's going to be much worse, but it's going to take some time to see the whole picture, unfortunately. But generally, the pesticides, herbicides have caused an increase in poor health, and those are and then the junk food is a big deal. And probably, besides GMO, sugar, white flour, white sugar, are probably the most degenerative foods, and the most toxic food to our general state of health.
El azúcar es terrible.
What was it?
That the sugar
Yeah,
is
it's
terrible.
terrible.
Yeah.
¿Qué importancia tiene en la salud del cuerpo la meditación y el ejercicio físico?
How important it is exercise and meditation for the health of your body?
Generally speaking, nutrition is most important. Meditation quiets the mind, and we know that stress degenerates the body. So stress can cause disease. So when we're meditating, we're decreasing the amount of stress. One research showed that people who've been meditating for 7 years had a physiology that was 15 years younger compared to people who weren't meditating. So the physiology means lower blood pressure, lower pulses, that kind of thing. So it's important. The other thing that's important is the exercise. Exercise can just be moderate. Walking a half hour, 5 times a week, doing some stretching or yoga type things. We don't have to be super athletes, we just have to do moderate exercise. And that's what the body needs.
Bien. ¿Qué me puedes decir acerca de los alimentos con altas concentraciones de energía solar condensada, como lo son las frutas o en este caso la clorofila?
What can you say about the food that is that concentrates solar energy, like chlorella or wheatgrass?
We eat sunlight. The food takes the sunlight into the chlorophyll, and then that sunlight through the chlorophyll when we take it in, gets transferred into what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which are the biological units. So without that sunlight, we wouldn't live. It's pretty important.
¿Cuál es tu opinión acerca del wheatgrass?
Wheatgrass is a very powerful, concentrated superfood that not only has high nutrient value, but it has high sunlight value. And so it's like eating sunlight. And it's really, really good for everyone. It's also extremely good detoxification for people. And it also helps clear the body so you can meditate more, and the mind.
¿Cuáles son los beneficios que otorga y cómo es que oxigena? Porque se sabe que la clorofila molecularmente es igual a la hemoglobina en sangre. ¿Podrías explicar cómo es que funciona dentro del organismo?
Can you explain how this works inside your body? Because it is known that
que la clorofila molecularmente, viste que son iguales.
Yeah, the chlorophyll molecularly is the same as la sangre, ¿no?
Hemoglobina.
The hemoglobin. How does that work in the system?
¿Cómo oxigena?
So the structure for chlorophyll and the structure for hemoglobin are the same, except that this has magnesium and that has iron. So when this goes into the body, it adds the hemoglobin structure, and the magnesium is replaced by iron. And so it actually, one of the best treatments for anemia is really your green foods, and like your wheatgrass. Now, we keep thinking it's a big steak, it's going to help, but actually the research shows just doesn't show that. It shows that your green foods best protect against anemia. So in World War I and World War II, when the meat wasn't available, the rates of anemia decreased because people were eating mostly vegetables. And that was a very interesting unplanned experiment.
Bien. Bueno, nos vamos con la última. Sabemos todo tu lucha por el cambio de conciencia. ¿Cuál sería el mensaje que le querés dejar a la comunidad latinoamericana?
We know you are a warrior for expansion of consciousness. What is the message you would like to leave for the Latin American people?
The reason I come to Latin America, besides I like the people, and I like the spirit of the people, is that Latin America is the new hope for healing the planet. People are now just awakening to these more healthy ways of life, and more healthy ways of living, and more healthy spirit. And it's like the energies of the spiritual awakening and actually of the total lifestyle awakening have now began to reverberate in the Andes. And so to me, Latino America represents the new consciousness frontier, and the new frontier for holistic medicine, and really more important for holistic ways of life. And what I feel is that the people here are very ready to begin to live this way. And so it's very exciting to be part of this overall movement to activate this part of the world, which I believe in time will become the world leader. I mean, not maybe next week, but the world leader in the bigger picture. So what we're looking at is that Latino America is the sleeping giant that's waking up in terms of consciousness and in terms of a holistic lifestyle. The other advantage is that it's not that far from the natural ways how people used to live. And so there's a big advantage that way as well. So wherever we go, there just seems to be a real interest, and people are real excited, and my books, which are all translated now into Spanish, are now beginning to spread because they have the whole encyclopedia information that will empower people to really wake up and change their lives and hopefully change the world on every level, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So that is why I come, and I feel that as we are now having the biggest conscious eating, healing yourself, healing the planet conference that we have in the world for all our work, it just makes the point here that this is exactly the case. People are coming from over 8 different South American countries to be here in Buenos Aires to share in this celebration of the further awakening of a dietary consciousness as well as spiritual consciousness. So I'm very, very happy to be here in Buenos Aires to be part of this very exciting time.
Bueno, muchas gracias, muy amable.
Okay. Good.
Gracias.